After a myriad of incomings, Chelsea seem to be turning their attention to outgoings for the rest of the transfer window. Romeo Lavia continues to be linked with a move to Monaco, and supposedly they're preparing a bid. Reports linking Chelsea to Porto goalkeeper Diogo Costa have been downplayed for the time being. Another up-and-coming academy star gets a move, with Genesis Antwi making his way to Strasbourg on loan. And although we're mostly focused on outgoings, there is some news to say that Chelsea have taken an interest in Giorgio Scalvini of Atalanta. Axel Disasi has supposedly already agreed terms with West Ham United should he fail to find another club. Bournemouth remain resolute on the Alex Scott situation, with them declaring he is absolutely not for sale. And newest sporting director Dave Fallows has been the leading voice behind the scenes in recruiting experienced players like Jordan Henderson and Danny Welbeck. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And like I say, man, it seems to be we're mostly focusing on outgoings at the moment, so let's have a little look at what's going on in the world of Chelsea today. Transfer News Live posted this via the Cy Phillips Sports Substack. Yes, got it right. AS Monaco are preparing a £25 million bid to sign Chelsea midfielder Romeo Lavia this summer. Chelsea are expected to receive the offer soon as Monaco step up their interest in the injury-hit Belgian. The Blues are planning a major squad overhaul under Xabi Alonso, with several departures expected. So, interestingly enough, this is actually not the first time we've talked about this, but it has been a while. God, it must have been literally right at the beginning of the window, coming up to, a month and a half, 2 months ago now. Monaco were showing interest in Romeo Lavia, right? And the Romeo Lavia situation is really interesting because what he is a really good player. But what he also is an accident waiting to happen. And, it's just been one of those. In 3 seasons, he's never managed to play 90 minutes for Chelsea. So, it's an interesting one. And look, Romeo Lavia will be difficult to shift in general, but 25 mil is a snip, essentially, for a player of his proposed quality. Now, if Monaco back themselves to manage his injuries in the same way that we've managed Reece James's, for instance, and you pay 25 mil for him, it is a high-risk, high-reward scenario for a club like Monaco. The thing is, if you get the best out of Romeo Lavia, then 25 mil is a snip. That's the thing, isn't it? Like, if you can get Lavia to play his best football all the time, and you can get him for 25 mil, buzzing, absolutely wicked. But obviously, you take on the risk of the injuries. Now, truth is, if Romeo Lavia was fit all of the time and didn't have these injury worries, we'd still be talking about, especially in this midfielder market, we'd still be talking about the 50 to 60 million that we bought him for in the first place, wouldn't we? So that's the thing. Now, would Chelsea be willing to take that loss? Because we paid 60 mil. He's been with us for 3 seasons, so albeit his amortised price will have come down, there's still going to be more than 25 mil on the book. So in order to, if we were to sell Romeo Lavia for 25 mil to Monaco, that's still going to represent a loss. So look, if I'm honest, and I hate to say it because I love the player, man, I really, really do. But at this point, looking at our midfield right now, the only midfielder in our whole squad I'm comfortable with is Moises Caicedo. And it's like, if we're going to go and get another midfielder in the shape of an Adam Wharton, in the shape of an Alex Scott or something like that, people have got to start leaving, whether it be on loan, whether it be sales. And as much as I rate Romeo Lavia as a player, I really, really do, because I just think over the last tumultuous couple of seasons that we've been through, when he's been fit and when he's been in our midfield ticks better. It's like, we've obviously played Enzo Fernandez there for the most part, but Enzo Fernandez spends all of his time getting forward. Romeo Lavia is the archetypal deep line distributor. He's a tidy passer, tidy defender, and when he can stay fit, generally he contributes really well to the team. The other thing about it as well is like confidence, right? When we got him, he looked great, up until he was getting injured. And when he comes back, he does still look great some of the time. But at the same time, it's like going through all of these situations is going to hit your confidence, isn't it? Like being injured for this long. So, yeah, like I say, man, as much as I hate to say it, if a club like Monaco were willing to pay something in and around 25 million to sign Romeo Lavia, I think we should take the hit. And it saddens me because a fit and firing Romeo Lavia is one of the best midfielders in our team, I think, personally. But unfortunately, we just haven't been able to see it. Do you know what I mean? So like I say, from our perspective, it's a loss, but at the same time, it frees up squad space, it frees up squad cost ratio. And from Monaco's perspective, it's a high risk, high reward scenario where they don't pay a huge amount for a midfielder that is potentially amazing. Potentially, France would be better for him than England as well. I mean, he's Belgian, so he speaks French already. And with Ligue 1 not exactly being quite as physical as the Premier League, maybe there's a little bit... I mean, it's a weird one with Romeo Lavia because it's not just about the physicality of the Premier League. Like, Romeo Lavia's injury worries are really strange. You know, when you compare them to like Reece James, hamstring injury, recurring incidents of that hamstring injury over and over and over again. Cole Palmer's injury worries that hopefully he's over now was about that groin injury. Again, recurring incidents of that same injury causing him problems. Romeo Lavia has had like a different injury every single time. So it's a really, really strange one. And it's not necessarily like, it just feels like he's really, really unlucky. But it's just one of those. If France is a little bit less physical and there's a little bit less demanding on him physically, maybe that allows him to get more minutes without it being as intense. So, you know, maybe there's some sort of thinking over there from AS Monaco. And look, 25 mil for them, if they can get the best out of Romeo Lavia, is amazing. If they don't, they haven't shifted the earth in order to sign him. So it feels like a bit of a win-win for Monaco. So guys, let me know what you think about the Romeo Lavia situation. Like I say, it pains me because I really, really like the player and I think he's a fantastic profile. But the truth of the fact is, I just don't think he's ready for the Chelsea team. So if a club like Monaco were to come in with 25 mil, do you think we should take the loss on him and try and move on and ultimately enhance our midfield with new signings? And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so on to more transfer news, and we're going to talk a little bit about Diogo Costa. So Diogo Costa was linked with Chelsea last night, and there was this thing that came out, I think it was Mundo Deportivo, saying that Chelsea are preparing a bid for Diogo Costa. Feels like, look, it's a whole situation, right? But that news came out last night, and in response to that, in the Athletics deal sheet today, Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Simon Johnson Sport. Reports of Chelsea interest in Porto goalkeeper Diogo Costa have been downplayed. I get it. Do I think that means it's over? Not necessarily. I think the telling thing at the moment is Mike Penders has only just joined up with the squad. And I'm not going to lie to you, I expect Mike Penders to play tomorrow against Juventus in pre-season. I think the situation we're in at the moment, I don't think Robert Sanchez is going to be our first team goalkeeper for next season, one way or another, right? I think that the best he can hope for is being our number 2. Philip Jorgensen is obviously having his difficult negotiations with Strasbourg in order to get the loan over there at the moment. Teddy Sharman-Lowe and Gabriel Slonina are hanging around, but Teddy Sharman-Lowe maybe gets kept as the third choice, but Slonina, we've been trying to shop him out already. And Robert Sanchez, A, recently got injured, and B, just, I don't think is the goalkeeper that Xabi Alonso is going to be looking for. And look, time will tell. Time will tell. Maybe I'm completely wrong and Robert Sanchez becomes the next Petr Cech or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But I genuinely believe that if Mike Penders comes in and Xabi Alonso doesn't think he's ready to compete in the Premier League, I think we will go in for a Diogo Costa. There's more outgoings and stuff we need to do to raise funds, but we've got a lot of players to sell, so I'm not particularly worried about that. But yeah, as of right now, it makes sense that we're not in for Diogo Costa, but at the same time, I do think that there could be something in it. It'll probably be the next 2 or 3 weeks until we find out. Because Xabi Alonso will want to take a look at Mike Penders. Mike Penders is so young. He's 20 years old. Do you know what I mean? He's 20 years old. So it's a lot to ask for a 20-year-old to come and be the goalkeeper that takes your team from a 10th place finish to a Champions League finish in the Premier League, right? Crazy stuff, crazy stuff. So if he's not up to it, I expect us to go in for a Diogo Costa. And if Diogo Costa isn't available, I expect us to look at someone like a Mike Maignan, for instance. Albeit it'll be a lot of money, the goalkeeper is almost the most important player in your squad because it's the one you just don't want to have to think about for the most part. And for Robert Sanchez, there's been a lot of thinking about him because he's very error-prone, and that's largely informed by his confidence issues, right? And ultimately, I don't think we're going to be playing out from the back quite in the same way that we did with Maresca, because I don't think there's going to be as much ball recycling with Xabi Alonso's team, but we're going to be a possession-based team, and the goalkeeper being comfortable with the ball at his feet is still going to be important. So, as of right now, Diogo Costa being downplayed, but like I say, personally, I think and I've been saying this for a while, I think the goalkeeper situation could go on until the end of the window. Right, next up, we're going to talk about loan moves for Academy stars. There's been a few already. Reggie Walsh and Ryan Kavuma McQueen are both being touted with Championship and League One loans, but Chelsea Dodgers posted that Genesis Antwi has completed a season-long loan move to Strasbourg. So this is an interesting one because Genesis Antwi hasn't been in the preseason squad, but Genesis Antwi made three appearances last season, I think one of which was in the Champions League, and him and Reggie Walsh kind of came into our vision at the same time. So, when you think about the likes of Reggie Walsh and Ryan Kavuma-McQueen looking at being loaned to League One and Championship clubs, but Genesis Antwi has been sent straight to Strasbourg, that tells you that either his stock is higher or Chelsea are not convinced by him long term and want to see what he can do in another league. It's still a developmental loan, but it feels a little bit more up in the air than it does with Reggie Walsh and Kavuma-McQueen, who you can look at their loans and be obviously like their developmental loans. But do we see something with Genesis Antwi, the likes of what we saw with Diego Moreira? We send him on loan there, and if he is okay in the team, we sell him for like 2-3 mil and we keep a buyback option or whatever it is. Either way, it's a good move for Genesis Antwi. 18, 19 years old, like really, really young player, right winger. I think we first saw him the last preseason, so about a year ago. He's been in and around the Chelsea first team now, and I think this will be a good move for him. And look, I'm going to do a loan watch series this season, and it's already looking really interesting, right? Because we're going to get to keep up with Reggie Walsh, Ryan Kavuma-McQueen, Genesis Antwi, Alejandro Garnacho. I'll factor him in, but at the end of the day, that's going to be a sale, isn't it? But either way, the loan moves that we're doing for the young players at the moment are smart, and I'm really into it. So next up, we're going to hop over to the Cy Phillips Sports Substack, and there's two stories I want to talk about. The first of which is Atalanta defender Giorgio Scalvini. So Cy Phillips posted this on his Substack. SPTC sources understand Chelsea have made some checks on Atalanta centre-back Giorgio Scalvini in recent days, with at least two of our sources even suggesting that there have been some agent contact. The 22-year-old has been playing senior football in Serie A since 2021 and has 8 Italian caps to his name. Although not an experienced option like Stones, Chelsea scouts really love Scalvini after watching him a lot last season and believe he is still a proven option. However, there is some contrasting information from the sources on this one. Cy Phillips' top sources still believe that Chelsea would ideally like a Premier League proven centre-back to come in should they get another one this window, pushing towards an option more like Stones. So again, we will have to wait and see what happens with this one, but Chelsea need some outgoings to go through now in the defensive areas. So this is interesting because largely another young centre-back that we've been talking about, or Chelsea have been talking about throughout this window, has been Jacobo Ramon of Como, right? So Scalvini's popping up as an option, and he's 22 years old. He played 22 times for Atalanta last season, and he's clearly a good defender. But it seems like Chelsea are not super keen on adding more young defenders to the squad at the moment. And that makes sense because we've already got, at the moment, we've got Aaron Anselmino, Josh Achiampong, Mamadou Sarr. We've already got a couple of young centre-backs in and around the squad that we're not quite sure what to do with. So adding another one to the pot, an unproven Premier League one, doesn't seem like the best option at the moment, does it? And I do find it interesting, more so than the Scalvini link, I find it interesting that supposedly Chelsea are interested in getting a Jordan Henderson or a Danny Welbeck, but for the defensive areas. And that would be fascinating because then we would have experience in the spine, like, you know, attack, midfield, defence. Goalkeeper, there's been some talks about. I think we've been linked to Fraser Forster and Jason Steele, although those have kind of quietened down a little bit recently because we've got 4 goalkeepers on our books already. But I do think it's really interesting that if we were to go in for a centre-back, ideally, they want it to be another Premier League proven centre-back, probably with a bit of experience, and one, I would imagine, that isn't going to be really, really keen to play a lot of minutes. The problem with going in for more young players is you buy developmental players for your first team in a season that you don't have Europe as well, and all of a sudden it's like, where are the minutes coming from? Should they stay fit, Maxence Lacroix, Levi Colwill, Reece James, these guys are going to get a lot of minutes. Behind them, at the moment, you've got Wesley Fofana, Tosin Adarabioyo. And like I said, that's not even to mention the other 3 centre-backs in Aaron Anselmino, Mamadou Sarr and Josh Achiampong. And that's even before we're talking about most of the ones we've sold Trevor Chalobah now, but we also still haven't sold Benoit Badiashile and Axel Disasi. So there's so many centre-backs at the club at the moment. So if we were going to go in for another one, I don't think a Jacobo Ramon or a Scalvini is the right kind of profile, albeit both of them look like great players, and it's got nothing to do with the player profile themselves, like the actual playing profile. I think they both look like great players. But at the same time, it's like we're only going to be playing 1 game a week for the majority of the season, up until the back end of the season where, you know, the cups start heating up a little bit, if we make it that far into the cups. There's not going to be a huge amount of opportunities for him to play, and he got 22 appearances at Atalanta last season, and the best thing for his development probably is to stay where he is, unless we buy him and loan him back out and he becomes another future option. Same for Jacobo Ramon, really. So guys, let me know what you think. Like, a couple of you have mentioned Scalvini in my comments recently, so I hadn't heard much about him. I checked him out a little bit recently. Seems like a very predominantly right-sided centre-back, or at least that's where he's been playing for Atalanta. Definitely an interesting young talent. 8 caps for Italy at 22 is impressive. albeit Italy failed to get into the last couple of World Cups. But I actually kind of agree that if we were going to go in for a centre-back, a John Stones type, or someone in the mould of a Jordan Henderson and a Danny Welbeck, who can come in, add experience to the team, but at the same time not expect to play a huge amount of minutes, seems like the way to go for me. Let me know what you think in the comments. So sticking with Cy Phillips and sticking with centre-backs, we're going to talk about Axel Disasi. Chelsea and West Ham have all but agreed terms of a sale for one Chelsea player to head to the Hammers this window. Terms are also agreed with the player, but there is a possible waiting period here as well. I explain it all below. SPTC sources understand Chelsea and West Ham have agreed terms in principle for defender Axel Disasi to move to West Ham this window. As well as this, West Ham have provisionally agreed personal terms with the player, albeit with nothing signed yet. Disasi has never been overly keen to move down to the Championship, but he has a love for West Ham and an affiliation now with the fan base after being adored by them on loan there last season. That is why he's seriously been considering making this move. The terms of the deal would be a permanent move for Disasi, but on the player side, there would be a buyout clause in his contract that clubs could trigger if West Ham do not gain promotion back to the Premier League come the end of the season. The waiting game is, though, Disasi is still in talks with 3 other clubs, 1 in the Premier League and 2 in Italy, regarding making a move there. It is his desire right now to wait at least another week to see if any of those conversations develop or not, but the player is rather torn because he does have a love for West Ham. Either way, Disasi is still expecting to leave Chelsea very soon this window, and the deal with West Ham is expected to be a permanent one. So this is really interesting because yesterday we commented on Axel Disasi being linked to Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace is supposedly preparing an offer. Now, what does that mean? So you would have thought it's going to be a permanent one. When there are permanent offers on the table, as we have from West Ham, Chelsea are probably not as likely to entertain a loan move for a player like Disasi when we've got other players that ideally would like to get out on developmental loans, the likes of Mamadou Sarr, for instance. You know, the whole thing around Mamadou Sarr is we want to get him a Premier League loan. If you send Axel Disasi out, that takes up a valuable spot. I think if you have to be under 21. I think Mamadou Sarr might be 21 now. For it not to count. So look, we've just got to be careful with these loans, and at the end of the day, we want to sell Axel Disasi. Do you know what I mean? It's like this will be the 3rd season that he's not been in the team. He's barely played for the first 6 months of both of those seasons and then gone on loans at the back half. It's the best thing for everyone for Disasi to get the permanent move now. So West Ham is on the table. He's agreed personal terms, but I get it as well. He wants to wait to see if the Crystal Palace, I think it's Roma, and I'm not sure of another one. There's another Italian team that are in for him as well. But he wants to see if any of these moves materialise, which is fair because going down to the Championship is not the dream of every player who's obviously spent time in the Premier League. But at the same time, I think he's being relatively smart here because what will happen now? So Axel Disasi will leave the club. This is the important thing. It's not going to be a case of we get to deadline day and no one's coming in for Disasi. It's like, right, Disasi, who classically has actually been rather picky with these moves to the point where he ended up in the bomb squad because he turned down moves from Wolves, Bournemouth and West Ham at the beginning of last season. But he's doing a smart thing here where he's like, right, okay, West Ham is on the table. If I can't get to Italy or Crystal Palace don't want to pay the money for me, I'll go to West Ham for a season. Even though it'll be a permanent deal, they'll pay the money, the 17, 20 mil or whatever it'll be. He'll smash it in the Championship, and if they don't get promoted, he'll have a buyout clause, and it won't be a very expensive one either. So Axel Disasi is manoeuvring himself into a situation where he's got his future in mind, and look, this is just good news because, you know, Benoit Badiashile, for instance, albeit it sounds like he's very close to Napoli and Juventus are interested as well, you never know what's going to happen. Things might fall through. It felt like that with Trevor Chalobah to Como as well. Do you know what I mean? It felt like, is this deal going to get over the line? Axel Disasi, it's just a waiting game now. Whether it be West Ham, whether it be Crystal Palace, Roma, or the other club in Italy, Axel Disasi is going to leave Chelsea on a permanent deal by the end of this window. And look, it says here that it's only going to be another week. And it makes, I think West Ham would be great. Like, yeah, okay, the Championship's not ideal, but at the same time, the fans love him, and that's something he hasn't had from Chelsea for the entire time that he's been here. Axel Disasi has kind of been under the microscope in a relatively negative manner pretty much since he got through the door. He's been scoring own goals and getting red cards and making silly challenges like for the entire time that he's been with us. But it's weird. He just seems to play, when he went to Aston Villa, played pretty well. When he went to West Ham back end of last season, played pretty well. So again, it must be, for me, like a stylistic matchup with the type of football that we're trying to play. And he obviously doesn't suit it, but when you send him to a team that plays the way that suits him a little bit better, the fans like him, he gets on pretty well. So, Axel Disasi, we hardly knew you. That's not true. We knew you a little bit too much, actually. But at the same time, one way or another, if it's West Ham, Crystal Palace, Roma, or the other Italian club, which I've forgotten, Axel Disasi is not long for Chelsea. Last but not least, we're going to finish with a little piece about Dave Fallows via Ben Jacobs and TalkSport from PYS. Dave Fallows, one of the relatively new 5 sporting directors at Chelsea, has been one of the leading voices in the recruitment of Henderson and Welbeck. Fallows is putting a lot of emphasis on footballers as human beings and what they add, not just on the pitch. Henderson knows Fallows from his time at Liverpool. So I've mentioned this on a couple of live streams. I think I've talked about it in videos as well. Granit Xhaka was obviously Xabi Alonso's ID, and he's probably ideal solution for that kind of midfield general, right? And Granit Xhaka makes more sense in the grand scheme of things because it's more evident what Granit Xhaka offers on the pitch, and it's more akin to the Danny Welbeck situation. But I think Jordan Henderson is still going to be he will play, and I think what he's going to bring to the dressing room is just, we desperately need it. And Dave Fallows has been instrumental in this kind of revitalisation of the intangible qualities that you need in a squad. So the sporting directors that we've had, Win Stanley, Stewart, Joe Shields, the Avengers, you know what I mean? It seems a bit funny to call them that now. But at the same time, they almost exclusively looked at tactical player profile, age and value, and they completely ignored things like personality. And you can see that in our team because we struggle to hold on to wins, we capitulate, we get loads of red cards. Like whether it be because of the youth or not is kind of irrelevant at this point. The team that we've put together over the last few years has been missing leadership, like so obviously been missing leadership. And leadership isn't just something that you can create. The intangible personalities of football teams, like that will have been one of the big reasons why Leicester won the league. It wasn't just because Ranieri is a tactical genius, and it wasn't just because of the magic of Riyad Mahrez and Jamie Vardy. It will have been because of people like Wes Brown and Danny Simpson. Do you know what I mean? These experienced old heads that help keep it. Robert Hoof, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of these players that didn't go on to have phenomenal careers afterwards either. That was so important in that Premier League win because they built the mentality of that team and they kept everyone together. We've been completely missing that. We've been trying to play Football Manager, we've been trying to play FIFA Career Mode with throwing kids with potential into the team and expecting someone to emerge as the leader. And the thing is, the leadership hasn't really come from the management either. Like, you can see already how different Xabi Alonso is to Enzo Maresca and Liam Rosinha, especially when it comes to the relationship with the players. There's an aura, you can see it in pictures, you can hear it in words, you can, you can, when Jordan Henderson joins a club and talks about it, or, when Cole Palmer talks about it, or when these guys are being asked about what it's like to work with Xabi Alonso and what it's like talking to him, there's so much respect there, and that wasn't there, do you know what I mean? So we've added leadership in the management area, but we still desperately needed to add it on the pitch as well, and Dave Fallows sounds like he's been instrumental in that. And if I were Win Stanley, Joe Shields and Lawrence Stewart now, I'd be starting to be a little bit concerned because Dave Fallows, look, results paint the picture. At the end of the day, if we'd have got in second place last season, we'd be, the sporting directors who got pay rises would be being touted as geniuses. Do you know what I mean? They would. But obviously that's not happened. So Dave Fallows has to back this up with results. Of course he does, but he's made massive changes in the squad. Him and Xabi Alonso together are making massive changes in the squad. And I think it just makes sense. I talked about it a little bit yesterday. What it feels like we're looking at now is the separation from the first team sporting project and the financial business side of the club. And Win Stanley, Stewart, Joe Shields will keep on identifying young talent to bring into the squad. But you can't just exclusively do that in order to build a winning team. We did all right. Do you know what I mean? And this is the other thing as well. Like, we finished 10th, right? That's awful. But with this, we finished 4th, got into the Champions League, won the Club World Cup, and up until Maresca absolutely capitulated, we were 2nd in the Premier League last December. So they did quite well with what looked to be a broken system and a broken model. But ultimately, it just showed that it didn't have legs long term and it collapsed under itself, right? So Dave Fallows is coming in, and as well as, you know, it's not just about bringing in experienced players, it's about bringing in leaders. And Dave Fallows seems to have been a really, really big part in doing that. So I hope we keep hearing his name, and I hope it works. At the end of the day, that, like I say, it all comes down to results, doesn't it? If it works, wicked. If it doesn't, who knows what we do next? You know, who knows what the problem is then if it doesn't work? Well, I know exactly what people are going to say the problem is, but hopefully it doesn't get to that, because I got a bit bored of it by the end of last season. So I love the partnership between Dave Fallows and Xabi Alonso at the moment. It seems to be working really well, and I'm just looking forward to the season getting started. And like I say, the thing is, with Welbeck and Henderson, you're maybe not going to see as much of what they bring to the table, because look, Welbeck probably, if he scores some goals and that, don't get me wrong, but Jordan Henderson is probably not going to come on and wow us on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? It's probably not going to be one of those, but what they will bring, you will see in our performances, in the rest of the team, in the mentality, in little things like not throwing away leads and you know, capitulating at last minutes, getting loads of red cards. I expect, you know, between the leadership of Xabi Alonso, Dave Fallows, with Reece James as the captain, I'm hoping Levi Colwill is the vice captain, but that could now go to a Jordan Henderson or something, couldn't it? That would be interesting to see. I expect to see a lot of changes in the way that Chelsea go about their footballing business in the next season, and I am buzzing for it. So nice one, guys. We're going to wrap the video up there, but I want to know what you think about everything that we've talked about today. Romeo Lavia to Monaco for 25 mil. Good idea, bad idea? Look, you know, as much as I like Romeo Lavia, I just think, as I was talking about with Alex Scott, I think we need another midfielder. So I think if we can clear some space there and make a little bit of money, then let's do it. Diogo Costa to Chelsea is being downplayed, but I fully expect that to be revisited towards the end of the window if Mike Penders doesn't come in and hit the ground running. Genesis Antwi has got himself a loan to Strasbourg, which I think is a great developmental loan for him. Giorgio Scalvini has been looked at in the last few days. Axel Disasi has agreed terms with West Ham for a permanent move, but he still wants to wait for Crystal Palace and the Italian clubs to see if something else goes through. And Dave Fallows has been transformative in the idea of bringing personality and leadership into the dressing room so far. How much of a difference do you think it's going to make? Nice one, guys. Thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. If you did, I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.